Hey guys, this is Mr. V over here doing a book review today for The Three Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas. Before I get into my full book review, I want you guys to know that I do a spoiler-free book review, or as few spoilers as possible. So that's why if you see me looking down, I just have some notes so I don't give away any spoilers. So, let's get into the book review for The Three Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas. So, The Three Musketeers is a book that's about a guy. His name is D'Artagnan, or I can't pronounce the name, but it's about him. He wants to become a musketeer, and he leaves home to become a musketeer. And then it's just about the tales of his life, what goes on, his friends, everything like that. So that's the overall story. Now, before I get into my review for this, or before you guys consider reading this book, know that this book was released in the 1844. Now, so it was written in the 1840s, and so because of that, it does use an old-style English. You know, most of it's not too difficult, but it still uses an old-style English, so you guys should be aware of that. And something I was surprised to find online is that some people felt this was a good book for kids. I would say this is not a good book for kids. I think they would find some of the storylines too complex, and also I think they would just give up because of the old style English. So I'd recommend this only for people 16 or 18 and above. So anyway, now let's get into what I felt about The Three Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas. So this book, it basically takes place in France in the early 1600s. It was written and released in the 1800s, but it takes place in the 1600s. And I felt that the beginning was confusing at times because there were many characters in this book. There was a lot, and he kind of just throws them all at you at once. And they had these long French names to where, for me, it was very confusing in the beginning because there was many characters. I'll get more in depth about that. And also, I felt that the old style English, was a little difficult. I have read books with old style English before, but, so that, you just become prepared for that. If you guys want to read this book, just be prepared for that, because there will be some unknown words or different slang from that time that you're just not aware of. You can quickly look it up, but just be aware of that if you guys want to read this book. But again, I understood most of the stuff, but I did have to pay pretty close attention, and at times I would reread a section because I didn't fully understand what they were trying to say. So another thing I would give you guys, this is just a suggestion of mine, is that if you guys want to read the book, I recommend that you do look up things if you don't understand it. But it was best when I didn't focus on every little detail, that sometimes if I didn't understand something, I would just make sure I understood the overall big picture story, and that I didn't focus on knowing every little thing, and that's when it became a lot more fun. And I also I did use Spark Notes at times, just to make sure I understood everything. But, that's what I felt was best, and I'd recommend that if you guys are considering reading this book. So, the book, as I said, it was confusing at times in the beginning, but it was still a very fun read, because this story is a simple yet very complex story. I know that sounds like it's contradicts itself, but it's simple because the overall just main story, big story, is very simple. It's just about the main character, about his interactions with people, and the main few characters, and what is going on with the good people, the bad people, all of that. But a lot of events happen. And I mean a lot of events happen. This book, depending on which translation you get, this book is at least 700 pages. So that's why there's a lot that can happen, because a lot of events happens because there are many characters. But what's cool is that all the stories connect, so I found that a lot of fun. And also that despite there being a lot of storylines, and I said the stories can connect pretty easily, it is still pretty easy to follow because Dumas does a great job of easy transitions, and that's what made it a lot of fun for me. And but you just want to be prepared going into the story, knowing that there are a lot of characters, a lot of storylines, and that's why it can become complex. So again, you just want to be aware of that. But Dumas, he intertwined the stories well, because I just felt that this story had a lot of great writing. And that's why it just keeps you engaged, as you keep wanting to know what the next section is going to do. What is the next section going to reveal? What is going to happen? And, I think that's always a lot of fun because, as I said, the different stories, they are connected. And then you want to see, okay, because they're connected, what does character A do, or what does character B do? All that kind of stuff. And, that is a lot of fun. And it was because Dumas did a great job writing it. So that's also a lot of fun. And the characters are also great. I just thought he did a great job with the characters. He lets you, by the end of the story, who the characters are, but he slowly reveals who each character is, and you get to slowly know. But the characters are fun because the story, as I said, is very simple about being a musketeer, and like he meets the musketeers, all that kind of stuff. But you should know that it's kind of a story of just a bunch of short-tempered people. The musketeers are all very short-tempered. Their enemies are short-tempered. A lot of the women in the story are very short-tempered. And it's kind of fun seeing that, because that, especially when they talk about the musketeers or the enemies, is that like all the people have egos. Like all the people in the story have egos. So that was a lot of fun. That it was, and it felt fairly real in that it wasn't just the bad people that had the egos. The good guys had egos too. Like the musketeers, who are supposed to be the good guys, they all had tremendous egos, and they did bad things too. Like dueling was illegal then, yet the good guys would also duel with the bad guys. It wasn't just the bad guys always challenging the good guys. It was sometimes the good guys would challenge the bad guys, and they were caught at times. Sometimes they weren't. So go into the story knowing that. If you like that kind of stuff, knowing that it's like, okay, both sides are acting pretty real. That it's not just like one side is good and one side is bad. It's not just that clear cut. So that's a lot of fun because while it sounds funny, the musketeers at different times in the story, sometimes the musketeers were jerks and just completely selfish. Like, when I went into the book, you always think that the musketeers are going to be these great noblemen and be all great, but at times they were complete jerks. And at times you were like, wow, you guys are acting incredibly selfish. And that's why it feels very real. And a good example of it that I wrote down, I remember doing it, is like how people use each other a lot. And at one point, the musketeer is being used. A musketeer is being used, that someone is using the musketeer, like they're pretending to love the musketeer just to get what they want. And I can't say what they want, but they're using the musketeer. And then when the musketeer finds out, the musketeer is so incredibly angry, and he seeks revenge on that person. But he realizes the only way he's going to get revenge is he is going to pretend to be in love with that person's servant so that he can seek his own revenge. I know that can sound confusing when I say it, but basically the musketeer is angry that someone had faked love on them, that they are going to fake love someone else just so they can get what they want. And it's like basically the musketeer is doing the exact thing that they were being angry about. They're doing it to someone else. And that's where it's like when you read some of those things and it gets a little more complex, you realize that it's like, wow, sometimes the musketeers, you guys are not always that noble. And, and that's why I said, though, it is a lot of fun. But that's why I said it is a lot of fun, because also you go through basically every type of emotion when reading this book. It's a longer book, but I wrote down just some emotions that you feel. Sometimes you feel happiness, sadness, you feel anger and jealousy and fear and deception, and there's evilness, betrayal, there's mystery, there's romance, and that it's like there's skepticism, because you are skeptical of all these different people, because you keep wondering, it's like, are these people good? Are they going to use them? What is going to happen? Because Dumas basically shows how people are. And that it's like, this was written in the 1840s and it was supposed to take place in the 1600s, but it's like how people will still gossip behind each other's backs, and how they enjoy the failures of others, and how the enemies both feel that they are doing the right thing. And, that was something that really hit home to me. How both sides felt they were doing the right thing. Because if you go back throughout history, or you go to different wars, or just feuds among different people, both sides feel they are doing the right thing. and they tell themselves, they convince themselves they're doing the right thing, and that happens a lot in the book. So, that's where I felt, again, the writing was very intriguing, and it was great for that aspect. Now, some of the areas that I did not like about the book, I expressed some of them earlier. That I said the beginning was a little confusing. So if you want to read this book, make sure you stick it out and make sure that you just go through it. Don't just read a few pages and then stop. But one of the things, and this is my fault, but I didn't know the cities. I don't know every little city in Europe. And they talk about a lot of tiny cities in Europe to where there was times where it was confusing because of that. And then also I didn't know the currency rate. Like this takes place in the 1600s. I didn't know what currency they were using, but then I didn't know the rate because they were saying how they were getting paid X amount. And then I didn't know, is that a good amount? Is that a small amount? What is that? And sometimes you could figure it out if it was good or bad, but you didn't fully know. And that would sometimes cause confusion. But then also sometimes the story itself was just a little confusing. I used SparkNotes to help. That did help a lot. Just to make sure that I understood the overall story, I would just quickly read the summary. But there were times the story was confusing, and I think it was because he did have a lot of characters. If you want to read this book, be prepared for a lot of characters, because at any given point in the book, after you get through the beginning, there are anywhere from 12 to 15 main characters, at least. And there could be more. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. But there is at least 12 to 15 main characters. And that's why, because of that, you need to know. And again, there's even more minor characters. And you need to know, okay, who is this person? What feud are they in? What happened here? And, he's doing that. And he does it. And it's a lot of fun. But again, that part can be a negative for a lot of people because it does become complex because of that. So just be aware of that, if you want to go into this book. I got used to it and I ended up liking it, but it's just, you want to be aware of that. Now, as for the ending, I actually thought the ending was a really good ending because I liked the end because it just wrapped everything up. It kind of lets you know what happened to the different characters. It told you all these different aspects. And I thought that the ending went at a good pace, but the whole book went at a good pace. It didn't feel rushed, yet it didn't drag, so, I thought the whole book just went at a good pace and it just continued to do well through the end. And, I really enjoyed that. Now, so you can see that I enjoyed the book a lot. But what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to give it my official rating. So I always rate my books on a scale of 0 to 10. A 0 is an awful book, a 5 is average, and a 10 is phenomenal. If it gets close to a 10 or a 10, make that your next read because it is hard to get to a 10. Because again, a 5 is average, and I consider a lot of books just average, but also I'm a very tough critic. That is hard to move up even 0.5 or 1 point in my rating system. So, again, a 5 is average. I would rate The Three Musketeers an 8.5. Now, that is a very high rating in my rating system. But I would rate it an 8.5 because of all the things that I just told you in this review, is that there was a lot of fun aspects. Yes, there were times where the story was a little confusing, or there were some difficulties in terms of the Old English. But overall, I thought the story was great. As I said, it was it was a simple story overall, but then it became super complex. There were many different storylines, which can be confusing at times, but then as you understood it and as it came to the climax of the story, it just made it so much better that they had all these things and it connected it. And Dumas did a beautiful job of connecting the stories and made it fairly easy to follow. So I just thought that this was a really fun read. And that, it just taught you some life lessons. It really does teach you life lessons. It does teach you things like how you don't judge people too quickly, and it shows why in the book. And, you have to know who you can trust, and it just shows what people do. And there's just so many things about the book that I really enjoyed. So again, I highly recommend this book, but just be prepared based off what I said in the review. If you guys have any comments, if you guys have any disagreements, please put it in the comment section below. I hope you guys click the subscribe button, as I always upload many different book reviews from many different authors. I thank you for watching my book review. This is Mr. V. Hope you guys go and enjoy the book.